Hello everyone, it's me Toastata, and I'm going to be trying out a new series of sorts, where I take a look back at some of my older games and projects that I've attempted to make, and have a look at some of the good, some of the bad, and some things which could carry over into future games. To start things off, I'm going to be starting with probably one of the most ambitious games that I ever attempted, but it was cancelled around the time I started working on Duels of Fortune, because this game at that time I felt was unsalvageable. Like, if I wanted to fix things, change things, I'd start over, and I didn't want to do that, so I just made a new game instead. But this game is kind of like Duels of Fortune in the fact that it's a fighting game, but it isn't a traditional game like Duels of Fortune is. It is instead a platform fighter like Smash Brothers, except it's really bad. It's really bad, because it's incredibly simplified to the point where it's just not even Duels of Fortune. Like Duels of Fortune, it's not Duels of Fortune at all. It's simplified to the point where there's only one attack. No, there's only one button for attacking and 4 attacks per character, which is just not fun, and it's not good. And to top it all off, it's janky as all hell. It is so broken. Characters can kill you just by spamming buttons and directions, and some characters can't kill you at all. It's not balanced, it's not fun, it's just weird. And the music stopped because I forgot to set it to loop. I had no idea what I was doing. But a bit of background for this game. I made it not long after making a game called A Legend of Granbo for a game jam, and that game was 2D but it had other elements as well, but I took the 2D part and turned it into a 2D Smash Brothers style game, but it was really simple on purpose, and I started trying to add more characters to it, and then I just started developing it. I worked on it for about a year, I think probably longer than a year, although I didn't really work on it consistently for a year. There were points where I stopped working on it for months, because I was still at school at the time, and I still had a lot of schoolwork to do, so I took a lot of breaks while making this to do schoolwork. But I also added a ridiculous amount of characters, and as you can see, this isn't on the screen right here, there's a lot of characters, and all of them are playable. This isn't even every character, I don't think. Not every character is here. But you can also see that they're all 2D sprites, not 3D like Duels of Fortune, because I didn't know how to do 3D models at this point. I did development for games for when I started in 2016 to 2019, so about not even 3 years, about 2 years. Or was it 2015? About 2 or 3 years doing games, and I had no idea how to 3D model. I had no idea how to animate, but this is my first attempt to actually... No, it wasn't my first attempt. It was one of the bigger attempts at doing 2D animation, which I've kind of dropped now because I don't like drawing all that much. I prefer models. Models are a lot better for me. But anyway, I've rambled on long enough. Let's actually look at the game. As you can see, this series isn't going to be scripted. I'm just rambling on about this game. Actually, one important thing to know, some of the characters are not my own. I do remember who made them, and I'll put links to the games if they are still available in the description. Another thing is also some of the music. You may recognize it. Some of it is made by Jack7, this music is being reused for Duels of Fortune because it's good. It's really good, and it deserves better than a game like this. So it's being reused for that. Some of the music isn't made by Jack7, and I cannot remember who made it, so I'm terribly sorry if I cannot remember. I've tried my hardest, but the server which I had for this game, which was just me and the other few people who were working on it. It was mainly me. Another guy was helping called Lurkfish. I'm sorry if I butchered your name. He helped with some of the characters. He helped with some particle effects because I didn't have to make them at the time. Jack7, of course, made a good chunk of the music. And then a few other people came along when Jack 7 was busy with other things to help with the music, and I can't remember their names because it's been such a long time and that server is gone, and I didn't add them as friends, so it's kind of lost. So remember, I'll be sure to point out the music, which is not mine or Jack 7's. Yes, there are some of my own music in this, and it's terrible. Okay, it's been like 10 minutes and we haven't even started. So for now, I'm gonna do a mini series covering this game because there's quite a lot to it, as you can see here. But for now, I'm gonna just go straight into Tower mode, which is basically just arcade mode, but it's just called Tower mode for I don't know what reason. So here are all the characters in this game. Now this build isn't the most up-to-date build because there was actually, I think, 2 more characters that I added that aren't in this build, but the files they're not gone. It just takes too long to open, and I can't be bothered to do that, so I'm just using this old version. And I think I broke a lot of things in the most up-to-date version, so a lot of characters wouldn't work. So I'm just gonna stick to the version which works, and the one I have on hand, which is this one. So straight away, you may actually recognize a couple of these characters. I don't know if you can see my mouse on the screen. I don't think you can. So I'll circle any character that is reappearing. If I didn't, then I'm too lazy, but I've circled every character that is reappearing from this game in Duels of Fortune. So you can see there's a few of them. So I'm going to go through every single character now, just talk about them a little bit, and then in the next video or so I'll actually go into depth with some of the more interesting ones, the ones that actually are returning. So start things off, we have Doodle, who was a stickman from a game I made called Who Broke the Fourth Wall, which I want to cover at some point because it was the first game I uploaded, but it was made in RPG Maker. So Doodle, he was a self-aware stickman. He's like the most basic character in this game. Like, you know, it's got pretty much everything. I'll probably do a run of arcade mode with him. Next we have the Zorb, which is just an orb with an angry face. They were from a game I made called Rolling Rampage, which is the first Unity game I made. I will also cover that at some point. Next we have Ace, who was from a game called Cube Dudes, which never saw the light of day, and I didn't get very far with, but I was very sure, for some reason while making this, I was very sure that I would complete it in time. But even though by the time I'd worked on this, I hadn't touched the game for about a month. So I'll also cover that at some point. I'll cover any game. I'm probably going to cover all my games, to be honest. So if you don't know who a character is, there'll probably be another postmortem made about him later. So next we have Grimbo, and this abomination is probably one of my favorite characters I've ever made. It is disgusting, it is stupid, it is the best. I don't know what Grimbo is. It comes from the same universe as our Lord and Savior Calaman, and I did make a game for him called The Legend of Grimbo. I made 2 actually, a Christmas special one, which I'll also cover, both of them. The next character is not one made by me, it is made by Lepish. I can't remember the name, I'll stick it on screen if I haven't already, called Diadev, and he was a character made by him. I can't remember much else. He's a devil, of course, king of the underworld. He didn't have a game, he was an original character made for this. I think he was original for this, but yeah. Next we have a character who is returning for Duels of Fortune, Shoto. Except this version of Shoto is very different to the one, well, not very different. The basic idea and some of the basic moves are still there for the one in Duels of Fortune, except in this game he's a stickman because I sucked at drawing and I wanted to do more stickman. Next we have Blue, who is a character from, this is going to complicate it, so he's a character from a story which also happens to take place in the Duels of Fortune universe. He doesn't appear in Duels of Fortune because it wouldn't work. It's that yeah, I'll explain it in another video or something, but Blue, he's a somewhat important character. As you can see, he also has a beam, much like Red, who is down here. Moveset wise is meh. As a character, his character also is very different now. A lot of the characters who reappear or going to be reused at some point are very different now. This is a fairly early version of him, but anyway, moving on. Next we have Iggy, who is a boxer, surprisingly. Not a character made by me. He's also made by Lurtfish. And he has the power of explosions. Boom. Yeah, I can't remember much else about this character. I think he had a unique mechanic, if I remember right. We'll have a look at him in the next video or something. Next we have Nowhere. This character also surprisingly came from around the same time as Grambo. For the Game Jam, the same Game Jam, Adventure Game Jam 2016, made by Lurpish again. I don't know if I just said that, I'm probably repeating myself. Made by him. The game I'll link as well. I don't think it was finished, but I liked the character, and I remember in the Game Jam Discord, I asked when I was starting this game off, I said, does anyone want to include the character? And I think Lurpish and the next character were the first and only to respond to that. But yeah, next we have Chip, who is from a game called Chiptune, I believe, made by I'm gonna forget the names, I'll stick it on screen if I remember. I want to say Fledred. I'm terrible at pronouncing names and words, I'm sorry. I don't know why, I just am. But yeah, it's a music-based character. In this game, he was kind of unique in the way that he had some moves, but it was fairly basic. Next we have Grim, or the Grim Reaper. He had a pumpkin head. He was sort of co-designed between me and Lurpish. I had the basic idea, he drew a concept, and I adapted it for this. This is the kind of a design I would like to maybe reuse at some point. I like the pumpkin head sort of idea. But yeah, he has a unique mechanic, which is probably going to be reused in Duels of Fortune at some point. He has the ability to curse things. And yeah, I'll leave it at that, and we'll go over it at some point in another video. Next we have a character whose name changed so many times, and I can't remember why. At first it was... what was his name? I can't remember actually. His original name was begin with a G, but then it changed to Noul, N-O-U-L, which was a reference to the coding term Vool, which is B-O-O-L, and him and his crew all had coding related names. You know, yeah. He had a unique mechanic of being able to switch between two stances, something else that's going to reappear in Duels of Fortune. But he was kind of boring. He was supposed to be one of the main antagonists. He had the ability to teleport things, if I remember correctly, which is also being reused in Duels of Fortune for the character of Silver Blackjack. But next we have this character. As you can see, I'm hovering over it because it's all grayed out. He's not in the game. He doesn't exist. The only thing I have is this portrait, which, as you can see, is very much inspired by a Dragon Ball character. You may recognize a few of the inspirations as we look through this as well. Mainly because I like to throw things I like into these kind of games. You can see that in Duels of Fortune as well. But this character, I never made. I only had the idea for. His name was Var, as a reference to variables. VAR. He had a sword, if I remember correctly, and he had the ability to transform between another form. I'll stick it on screen if I have the image still. But he never saw the light of day. Next we have Drain, who was from a game I worked on with Lurpish for the Lundendar there. I don't know how you pronounce it. Ludendar. It's a word I don't know how to pronounce. And it was for a game called Drain, which I'll also cover at some point. Character kind of adopted that gameplay style. It was kind of cool. I feel like every character in this game is butchered. Is a butchered version of their actual one, and they've probably they deserve better. And this character definitely deserves better. I think Lurpish was gonna make a sequel game by himself featuring this character, but I haven't spoken to him in a while. So I don't know what happened to it. I haven't heard anything about it, so it may not appear. Okay, so next is Deadbeat, who is made by this the guy who made Chip, but he was an original character just for this game, and I can't remember much for him. I'll have to look at him at some point. But he's an evil Chip. That's as much as you need to know. Next we have, I forgot the name of this character. I think it was just the Creature or something. Yeah, it was the main antagonist from Nowhere, or the Legend of Nowhere. It never appeared in the game, but was planned to, so we decided to bring it back for this. As you can see, it's kind of got a Chaos from Sonic inspiration to it. It was very goo-like, and I like goo-based characters. I don't have many in Duels of Fortune, surprisingly. But next we have, I forgot this character's name. I think it's Diego. I may be wrong. And Diego is another original character made specifically for the game to be sort of an antagonist for Iggy. And I think he had ice powers. He also worked in a similar way to Iggy, I think. I think they both had the ability to charge a specific bar, which was reused for Shoto in Duels of Fortune, and use it to make their attacks more powerful, I think. Yeah. Next is a character you will recognize, because he's pretty much just thrown into Duels of Fortune. Red Cole, quote unquote, Red Maxwell, the Delinquent. As you can see here, it's a very basic version of his design, much like how blue is different now, red is very different now. Kind of kept the basic idea. Wears a hoodie, but this version actually has the hood up and has a full hoodie instead of the weird tank top hoodie. And his hair is boring. It's a boring, normal hairstyle instead of the weird, spiky mess that he has now. But he plays very differently in this game. There's like very little that is the same. Doesn't even have Crusher Ball. Okay, so next we have this guy who was from a clicker game I attempted to make called Gold Miners. This character did not have a name. He was called Gold Explosive or G Renadier. And he's a very boring character. I'm going to say that a lot about these characters. We are halfway through, this is taking forever. I need to speed this up because you probably want to see gameplay. I'll probably put timestamps in the description if you're actually interested in skipping all this, but it may be interesting to actually look at all these characters. This character is another one of the best characters I've ever made, Colin Calcium, from a horror game I made called Dead Doors. It was a game show set in hell, and this guy was the host. I love this character. He's a skeleton who is also the king of hell or something like that. I'll probably do a playthrough of him, but I can't think of much. He was a very fun character to make. This character was the start of my trend of making skeleton characters, which is continuing on to this day because I have a lot of skeleton characters. Next we have Shade, who was the antagonist from The Legend of Rambo. He also had a charge mechanic, if I remember correctly. I don't remember what for. This character is sort of forgettable. Moving on. Next we have Echo, who's a boss character from Cube Dudes, but as we know, Cube Dudes just doesn't exist. I think he was the only boss character I made. He was a sniper. He had a sniper. And that was it. He had a unique mechanic where he could angle his bullets, and that was about it. Everything else was bad. He's one of the characters who just can't kill anyone because all of his attacks are projectiles and they don't have any knockback whatsoever. Next is Eye Patch. Well, look at that, 2 characters who have eye patches back to back. And yes, I'm very original with my names. Don't at me. This character was an alternate playable character from Rolling Rampage. And his character actually had character. That what I just said made no sense, but he actually had some kind of character. He was a secret agent or hitman, I can't remember. But he had sort of a stealth mission in the game, if I remember. And it was pretty weird. That game was very strange, but I'm glad I made it because it was it was my starting point pretty much. Okay, next we have Striker. There's a lot of stickmen, bear with me. This is a stickman ninja, I know, from Who Broke the Fourth Wall. He was intentionally meant to look edgy, but he wasn't meant to be serious. It was meant to be a joke. It was meant to poke fun at these intentionally really edgy ninja characters that you'd see. But it didn't really come across as that. I didn't do a very good job. I didn't know how to write characters. I'm still learning, but I had no idea back then. Okay, so next was the first clone character I made, Sir Doodle. He's exactly the same as Doodle, but he has a sword, and that's the only difference. This character didn't even appear in the game. I made him up just for this game. I don't know why, I just wanted to make a clone character. Moving on. Nox. This character's called Nox if I remember. He was a boss in Rolling Rampage for Eye Patch, and he had a big mech, and I wanted to include that mech in some way. It was a very weird looking mech. I made a small version of the mech just for this game. He's so big he doesn't even fit into the character portrait. Next we have this squiggle called Cold, and Cold was the first game character I ever made, if I remember correctly. I remember when I first showed him off to the people I was working on the game with, they said why, and they said I shouldn't include it, but I included it because I was stubborn. Cold, he's also a character who cannot kill because all of his attacks are projectiles. I did not know how to make a balanced game. Next is probably the best, another one of the greatest characters I've ever made, Bad Egg. This go is covering up half of the character, but Bad Egg is... he's Bad Egg. He did not he did not originate from any game. I made him just for this, but now it's sort of kind of merged into the world of Calaman and Grimbo as one of the sort of minor antagonists, and his gun shoots eggs, or shoots yolks, which is really messed up if you think about it. You're like having a gun that shoots intestines. Yeah, but Bad Egg makes egg puns, so it makes up for that grotesque feature. Moving on to the best character in all of existence, Calaman. Do I need to say anything else? It is Calaman. This was the first ever planned appearance of Calaman before he got his own game. I drew him in the middle of a math class, and he's the best character I've ever made. Oh yeah, all of these characters are drawn in MS Paint, if you didn't figure that out already. Because I just refuse to get any other program, even though Paint.net exists and it's free. Yeah, I was weird. Next we have a character from an incomplete game that I never released again, called Jekt. I think that was his name. I don't know how, I just suddenly remember that. Jekt. His name was Jekt. G-E-C-T. Yeah, Jekt. He had a unique mechanic where different weapons would fall from the top of the screen, and you pick them up and it would change your moveset entirely. Pretty interesting. Pretty poorly done though. It's pretty bad. But an interesting mechanic, which is also reused for another character in this game, but I'll get to them when we get to them. Next we have Midas, a character who also comes from the blue and red sort of story, outside of Duels of Fortune of course. He was the main antagonist. He still exists now, but it's completely different. In this game he's a complete sociopath, and he's named Midas. Now he is something completely different, a slightly more relatable character. He's called Pitch, as in Pitch Black, another colour themed character, but he's not as pure evil now, but the basic idea of this character still exists. He won't appear in Duels of Fortune, but at some point he'll reappear in a game I make in the future, most likely. Next is a character who technically appears in Duels of Fortune, but not in this form. Blackheart. Or more specifically, this is Blackheart Blue. Originally, Blackheart characters there were multiple versions of them, and they weren't ids or the slime characters that they are now. They were just straight up evil versions of their main character, but from another universe. By the way, the story of this game was multiple universes coming together, clashing, and some of the characters were evil versions of the good characters. Blackheart Blue being the one, and Blackheart Iggy being the other. They are not clones. They have their own unique mechanics, and I say unique. They're all boring, but they have their own moves. They have a special mechanic to them, and they're more violent versions of Blue, much like how Blackheart in Duels of Fortune is a more violent version of Clyde. Speaking of which, guess who's next? Clyde Brightstar. Oh god, this character. So originally, Clyde was going to be in a completely different fighting game, which I tried making while I'm working on this game, which focused around humans versus monsters because I was really into Skullgirls at the time. And Clyde was the main character of that. He had the ability of electricity, which was then split and given to Shoto. But the character is nothing like he is now. He's not a boxer. Like I said, he has electricity instead of fire. He has some very weird moves. He's one of the more unique characters in this game, but he's not that fun. But I'll cover him in a different video. So next is Schrodinger, or Schrodinger. I said that really strange. He's a character made by Jack 7 from a game which was never released because the files got corrupted, sadly. Called... I've forgotten the name of the game. I'll stick it on screen, but I thought I'd include the character. And he's in it. He has a unique mechanic where he has a unique mechanic where he can pick up special power-ups that fall from the top of the screen, and these power-ups change his basic attack to do different things, which is pretty cool. But they're all random based, so not the best. Okay, next we have Sin, Sin is a part of the Newell gang or crew. He's the karate master, as you can see. His name comes from syntax, another coding word. Pretty standard character, made specifically for this. Not much else I can say. Next is just the random select. There's something secret hidden in there. It's not error, but I'll cover it in a sec. Next we have another character who returns, Azutron. He is near identical to how he looks now. Nothing's changed. He is still the police of the multiverse, travels around making sure things are correct. It works exactly the same, pretty much copy and paste is stuck into the earth. Not much changed. His moveset will change though. But yeah. Okay, next we have a character called Maverick. That's his name. Except now he is better known as Lance. This is Lance Marshall. This is his original design. I was inspired by Chris Redfield in Marvel vs. Capcom 3 to make this character, I think. That's why I decided to make him. He uses a similar mechanic that he does in Duels of Fortune. He has an ammo meter, and using his attacks uses a different amount of ammo. Simple as. Next we have... Who is this guy? Okay, this is a very strange one. This is called The Killer. Original. He comes from... Now bear with me. It comes from a short film I made for a film studies class, and I thought it would be cool to include this character, the main antagonist, as a playable character in this game. I'll show a clip of it or something now.
Yep, that's me. You're probably wondering how I got into this situation. I guess I'll start from the beginning.
Yeah, he's kind of fun. Well, not fun. He's got a unique mechanic in this game, but it's a very strange thing for me to add. But I'm glad I did. It was fun. It was funny to add in. Okay, so now we get some weird characters. Now we have a character called Cuth. I think his name was Cuth, and he comes from a story I wrote back when I was about 11 or 12, maybe 10 or 11. Yeah, it was inspired by Lord of the Rings, and he was the main character. And that's it. He's yeah, he has I think he has a unique mechanic where he calls on different allies from the story. That story is horrible, by the way. I found it out recently. It is so funny to read. I might include a link to it or something like a Google Doc in the description. It's so bad, it made me cry laughing. So yeah, he's here for some reason. I thought it'd be cool to include him. Here we have another one of these characters from the Blue Story saga. This guy is called Jack, but now he's known as Gray, I think. His name's Gray. This character had 4 aspects. Yeah, he uses the same power system as Duels of Fortune. He had 4 different aspects, which is stupidly powerful. But it made a unique mechanic in this game where he could switch between his different aspects or different elements. He had 4 different elements: earth, wind, fire, and water. And it made for a pretty kind of interesting mechanic. But I'll cover it at some point. We've been going for nearly about 20 minutes. This is going to go on for ages. I will play the game, don't worry. I'm just talking about these characters. Next is Del, or Delete. I don't know why he's called this. I remember just calling him that. He was a character from the same game as Jack. As you can tell, they have like the exact same stance and art style. I don't remember much about this character. I think he had a somewhat unique playstyle. But I remember I was working on that game at the same time working on this. And I thought, I'll include these 2 characters. And I did. They're here. Next is the character I kind of want to reuse at some point. Maybe as a background character or something in Duels of Fortune, or a future way further down the line character for like a sequel or late DLC. And this is Rag Z. A mummy character. Now, if he was going to return, I'd probably make him into a skater boy. A skater boy's mummy. Because this current design isn't stupid enough, it needs to be more stupid. But gameplay wise, he was okay. I think he had the ability to put a bandage around you and stop you from moving, and use his arms, unravel his arms, and use bandages to pull you in. There was no real gameplay style for any character, there were just random moves. So here, for some reason it's Fire Grandpa, we'll get to that in a sec, but in the later version, which I don't have, this was a different character called Shooting Star from the Calaman game. And he was just a bog standard character, nothing unique. I threw him in at the last second. There was the last character I ever made. And he was there. He filled out a roster of characters that didn't need as many as they had. Then we have Oliver and Jack, who are from a very, very old game I made, back on a site called Sploder. Which wasn't really a game making site. It was like the bare minimum. You didn't actually make it. It's not quite like Scratch. It was more basic than Scratch in a way. But it was a start. It was what started my interest in making games, if I'm being honest. So I felt including them would be cool because they were kind of my origins along with Cold. I'll cover those Sploder games at some other point. But yeah, next we have Vex, who came from a game I made called How Did That Hit Me, which is a rage game. As you can see, he pretty much looks like Viridian. I just wanted a character who looked like Viridian. For some reason I didn't bother asking if I could have Viridian, even though I hear getting Viridian as a guest isn't that hard. For some reason, I made my own character who looked like it and played like it. It was stupid, I know. Then we have the last character, last but not least, Kazoo Joe, who also came from the 4th wall game. His ability is that he has a kazoo. Need I say more? Now you may think this is it, that's every character. There's still more. If I hold down the start button, there are transformed versions of other characters. There are super versions of some of the characters. Because I am an idiot and thought making more characters would be a good idea. So, first things first, we have quote-unquote Ultimate Doodle. He is another clone. There are 3 Doodle clones. He doesn't play exactly the same as Doodle, he has some differences, but he's near identical. Next we have Fire Grembo. I don't know why this exists. It just does. I remember I made it in less than a day. It took no time at all. It's the worst thing ever. It is also a complete clone, with some slight variations. Next we have this. I think it's called Pure Barrier Blue. I don't know why. It also exists and it has been scrapped. That version has been scrapped. We also have Crimson Install Red. Back when I thought Red should have a power up. This version of Red did have Breakable, but now it's this whole form, quote unquote form, is gone because it was unnecessary. Next we have my poor drawing of muscles in the form of quote unquote matured Midas. I don't know why this version exists either. And then we have this character who is hiding in the random select. His name is Ool. Actually, his name comes from the word Boolean, and Nools comes from the word null. I remember now. This is Ool, and he has a kind of unique mechanic. He has like 3 times as many moves, but every time you press an attack, the next attack will be completely random or something different. It cycles through moves or something, and he takes moves from other characters. Cool, kind of interesting. He was a boss character, and I decided to hide him as playable inside the random select.